Namaste, precious, precious souls. Welcome to Book of Life. Third degree, lesson 19. We are getting through it. So obviously, a couple weeks ago was the actual Bardo. Today is going to be the day after death. So third degree, lesson 19. Well, let me go ahead and invoke before we begin. Just go ahead and place the tip of the tongue on the palate. And just be receptive. We release all unauthorized connections, front and back, to the great causal logos, the creator of all that is, to the great architect of the universe, Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, the Holy Master Cho Koksui, to Buddha Padmasambhava, to the Circle of Seven, to Robert and Earlyne Chaney, to Master Astara, Lord Kuthumi, Lord Rama, Lord Zoser, to the Astarian hierarchy, to the Lord Yehoshua Bar Miriam, the Lord Christ, to the Holy Mother Mary, Lord Kuan Yin Buddha, Lord Gautama Buddha, to all the great ones, our celestial guides, our angel guides, our higher souls, to the planetary logos, Sanat Kumara, the Ancient of Days, the solar logos, Lord Amen-Ra, the universal logos, the central spiritual sun. We humbly invoke for your divine blessings. May we be a channel through which thy holy ones approach the world. May we be a center for the radiation of thy power. Teach us to travel light, that we may better gain the heights, break the bonds that bind. Teach us to give ourselves entirely to thy service, to attune ourselves to thy will. Teach us to lay down the small personal life for the greater cosmic life and to love with the love of God in full faith. Om Tat Sat Om. Okay. Third degree, lesson 19, reassurance. It has required many lessons to unveil the mystery of death, the substance of which becomes 1. Death is as natural as birth. 2. The death hormone, which causes the respiratory system to cease functioning, resulting in death, also stimulates the mysterious electromagnetic seat of power, the Kundalini, at the base of the spine. 3. Thus, through the natural process of death, one achieves what one may have striven valiantly for all during the years of life, psychic and spiritual illumination via the upraised Kundalini. 4. The pilgrim absorbs into their immortal soul as a portion of illumination as the just ended incarnation will allow. 5. After the initiation into the light, a natural process of death, the pilgrim awakens to dwell in a new dimension, experiencing life much as it was on earth, except that the new form is subject to the natural laws of the higher elements. What adventures lie ahead for our pilgrim? Before we begin our incomparable journey into life on the other side, you, beloved initiate of the third degree, must be reassured. You have just completed the study of the saddest aspect of death, the darksome viewings of Sidpa and the judgment. Previously, you have been promised that Astarians and enlightened souls will not walk this lonesome way, and it is true. But as your teacher, I must be sure the teachings of the Sidpa and the judgment have left no fearsome impact upon your subconscious. I must promise you again, beloved, concerning the mysteries of death, return to the earlier lessons concerning death, lessons 12 and 13, third degree, and let these become your armor. For you there will be no Sidpa, no judgment, I promise you. Forget the words of part 2 of Astara's Book of the Dead. They apply to others. No Astarian need fear. Death for you can only be a glory time. Do you think the Astarian teachers would impress me to make such a promise to you were it not so? At least one of Astara's master teachers will be there waiting for you when you cross the immortal veil, my friend. I have given you their promise. If it were not true, I would not have told you. They are ready to help you attain liberation. They wait to carry you into the light. Christ said to his disciples, "Whither I go, you know, and the way you know, and where I am going, I shall prepare a place for you, that where I am, there you may also be." St. John. And so do we, Robert and Sita, and I say to you, through Astara's book of life, you know the way into the light. Live the Astarian precepts every day of your life and look not to death as a grim reaper, but as an hierophant leading you toward the highest of initiations. For every Astarian there is prepared a place, and it is in the realms of light. Hold within your memory the teaching of the clear light, for familiarity with this teaching will be your key to liberation. Forget not that should we go over before you, from whatever planes we ascend, we shall come back to be with you whenever you call us or request our help. And wherever we are, we shall prepare a place for you. Our solemn promise is this: when you approach your moment of death, we will be by your side. No Astarian will cross the way alone. Therefore, put aside any fears and arm yourself with the sure knowing that you will be supported and guided. Gird yourself with the spiritual confidence all initiates of the third degree wear. It is this inner knowing that sets the third degree Astarian apart. It is this certainty of a giant step upward at the end of this life that will work a magical transformation in the life of every Astarian initiate. You know that regardless what befalls you during the remaining years, you never walk alone. Every major decision you are called upon to make will be measured by its effect upon your coming transition. How will this action of mine affect my coming initiation, you may ask? How best can I spend the rest of my years so that at the end I can be assured of the highest illumination? Will my decision help or hinder my coming journey into the light? Thus will you, the third degree initiate, live your life, and thus will you die. So dwell not upon fears, but upon full faith in God's divine law of restitution. Death renders unto Caesar, the world of matter, the things that are Caesar's, the elements of nature, the dust of atoms and forces which were organized to create the physical form, and unto God the things that are God's, the indwelling soul, which is restored to God's kingdom from whence it came. It is upon this immutable law that all lower worlds, including human beings, live and move and have their being. The first thought: what are the awakening thoughts of the pilgrim in his or her new life? Usually, the first awareness involves concern for those left on earth, and the first question is, how may I be of help to the ones I love? So before we travel with the pilgrim into the astral adventures, let us pause long enough to consider the bereaved. For by so doing, we also teach of consolation for the departed, to ease the shadows of grief, for both is our concern, helping the bereaved. Death has been forever with us, and so has the problem of truly comforting those in the throes of grief. When we have verbally offered our help, we like to think we have done our best to help a dear friend steeped in sorrow. In truth, we have done little more than voice a few well-meant but empty words. Other offers to help are appreciated, true, but they certainly are not all that can be done. All of us have friends we really want to help at such a time. What is the best way to make such help effective? Sharing the sorrow and memories of the grieving one is usually the best means possible. Just as the living try to avoid discussing approaching death with those who are dying, so do friends usually avoid discussions of death and the lost with those in grief. Words come with difficulty because one simply doesn't know exactly how to handle the situation. Any discussion of the recent death can only open wounds, reasons the friend. So you may seek to distract the grieving and direct attention elsewhere, anywhere, except upon the subject so vivid in the mind and heart. Such a sad mistake. Love, friendship, conversation, healing balms for every wound. The best healing of grief is to encourage the grieving to talk and talk and talk about the one so recently gone over. Can you imagine anything more tragic than wanting to share the experience, the shock, with some understanding friend, only to be interrupted with, let's not talk about it. Get it off your mind. Let it go. He's gone now, and you must go on. Why not go shopping with me tomorrow? I really need to buy a pair of shoes. So reasons the friend who really think they are being helpful. Let's say George was happily planning a fishing trip, and just as he entered his garage, he gathered his stored fishing gear for packing. He drops with a sudden heart attack, and that's where Mary found him. Mary is first going into shock. Shock will evolve into grief. The grief will gradually abate as she enters a long period of recovery. How can Mary's friends really help? Here are suggestions you, as a friend, may follow. Contact her as often as possible, either by phone or in person. Bring memories of George into any plausible conversation, even share her tears. Never scold her for crying. Tears are the natural release valve for inner distress. Instead of avoiding the mention of his name, take every opportunity to remind Mary of something George did or said. Go shopping with me for new shoes. Mary, speaking of shoes, remember how George laughed at that pair you bought a couple of years ago? If Mary repeatedly remembers, only last week George and I were talking, and George said, listen attentively, share her memories, ask her, how are you doing about George's transition? Never, never advise her that she must forget George or cut short her mourning. Grieving hearts need to remember. Remembering George is the best possible way to help Mary forget her pain, her suffering. And it is these Mary needs to forget, never George. Sorrow is abated only with time, and the long weeks and months of shock and suffering can best be healed by shared memories. As time goes by, the actual physical pain of grief will subside. The memories, still vivid, may be relived with increasing tenderness instead of tears and suffering. Only time can transmute. The shock of grief is often death-dealing, and just as a physical form must be gradually restored following a debilitating illness, so must one's whole being be gradually transmuted from grief to healing. For such, there is no restorative medicine, no pill, no hypodermic, no operation. Only time can heal such a soul wound. Only time, understanding, love, compassion from loved ones and friends. And that's what true friendship is all about, sharing, grief as well as joy. Be assured the pilgrim on the other side will be most grateful. The day after death. We can paint no more beautiful nor poignant a picture of the pilgrim's awakening and early experiences over there than those described by a writer of earlier days, Epps Sargent, 1813 to 1880, impressing his thoughts upon the consciousness of the immortal Cora L.V. Richmond, speaker, writer, psychic of the 1800s. It is a joy to share his account with Astarians of the present day. I have edited it only to omit that which would repeat what we have already taught. These descriptions of awakenings are unsurpassed. How does death appear to one who has died? There is no pain in dying. Dying is a wonderful surprise, even to one who is accustomed to think of a future state when on earth. To one whose mind is carefully trained in all the schools of thought concerning immortality, to one whose religion and intellectual conviction both hinge with absolute certainty on the spiritual state, the greatest surprise of all is that you feel the gliding away of human things without a pang or regret or grief or pain. Pain itself has departed, and a pure, ineffable flood is coming to you. The loosening of the human affections, the hurt that comes to the heart when you hear the sob of the loved ones close beside you, and when you cannot reply, is overbalanced by the thrill that accompanies this loosening of the mortal tie, and you feel glad for death even while it is upon you. One cannot understand this unless he has labored to mountain heights and has seen the glory of the morning steam far out upon the sea as the sun suddenly comes up, tipping for a moment the dark waves with crimson and gold, and then rising in full splendor as though night had never been. As death unfolds, the realism of life besets one continually, and one longs to drag the mortal part into the immortal world, the shell into pinions, the root and germ into the flower. One forgets that for every stage of life there is preparation and growth, and one acts as though he desired to take his baby garments with him and wear them in manhood. Oh, what a sublime thing it is to feel suddenly grown to full manhood, to see those barriers broken, the bonds of sense dispersed, to know that you are every inch alive, and to feel not only all present consciousness and, I might say, all future consciousness crowded upon you. The greatest wonder of all is that everything in material life remains the same, but is transfigured, that all sensation and all consciousness grow more and more palpable until the very heartbeats of one's friends are audible when the spirit is passing away. As an overstrung instrument responds to every sound, so the consciousness of the departing is more and more exhilarated, until the very thought which you, the waiting loved ones, think becomes palpable to the one who is not dying, but is about to be born. To you who stand in the presence of death, it is like a receding wave. Dying reveals higher realities. In my mortal past, I stood many times and watched with questioning mind the receding wave of life and the passing from the mortal to the immortal. Ere I knew the great splendor of spiritual truth, I watched with sadness. But in the last years of life, I learned of spiritual existence, though I could not conceive what it would be like. If you have inhaled the perfume of a flower, but have never seen one, if you have read musical notes, but have never heard them expressed, if you have dreamed a dream of loveliness, but have never seen it embodied or impersonated, if you have thought of love, but have never loved, you then can imagine what the immortal state is as compared with the mortal. Telepathy pierces the veil. I was awake, alive, active. The dull lethargy of pain and suffering was departing as with a breath, and the grand strength of active life with its full vigor was surging above, around, and beneath. I felt the ineffable rest of floating out into an infinity of certainty, while all material things, save love and consciousness, seemed evanescent. This was my experience. I could feel all thoughts of those who stood near me. I could contemplate the mind and the heart wrung with bodily anguish, but glad for my release. I could hear my friends thinking afar off, this is now about the time that he must go. And when the news spread with electric speed, I could hear them say, one more worker is gone, though I knew many thousands of miles intervened between them and where my body was. I could hear my friends think the world over. There were slight heartthrobs answering to my life. And there was the inevitable questioning, what is he doing now? Asked by those who heard afar off that mortal form had ceased to breathe. Oh, but the quickening of the spirit. How can I tell you what it is like? It is like a symphony compared with one note, like an oratorio compared with the simplest melody, like the poem of Dante, like the ineffable Milton, like the crowning light of Shakespeare, all pervading and all glorious, like love itself that vanquishes the night of time and pain and death. His Bardot brings self-examination. I had myself before me, my thoughts and all my past life were impersonated. Everything I had done or thought came before me in form, whether it was beauty or deformity. Children, the waifs of my fancy, supposed to have been conjured out of the teeming brain of mortal life, were before me in reality. Every crowded fancy became impersonated until, like little people seen in fairy visions, all ideals were realized, and I laughed with these children of my fancy to find them so real, standing around me, claiming me for their spiritual parent. Angel deities of unsurpassing splendor came thronging around me as he awakens from the dream of life. Loves, told long ago and seemingly half buried beneath the withering hopes of manhood, came up and again claimed their recognition. Friendship, which is in the crowded and busy mart of human things, had been well nigh forgotten, came up again as a living image and asked for its own return. All love survives, and how it peoples the space that elsewise would seem infinite and void. I cannot think of what death would be to him who has never thought a truth or dreamed a noble thing for humanity, or never loved anyone. I cannot think of what it would be without the created images of thought. Mine, crude as they were, unbeautiful as they seemed in the clear light of the spirit, and dimmed somewhat by the faults and failings and fallacies of my material nature, seemed very dear to me. I did not pass through space to find my new world. I did not go to a distant planet. Space came to me and was at once inhabited. I saw all my friends of the earthly life as I saw them before passing away, but with a different vision. I saw them afar off, on the line of light of memory. I saw them more clearly because I saw their spirits. This friendship that I had valued too little, another that I had valued too much, this mind that seemed a brilliant and shining light through the human lens, grew perhaps less brilliant, while another that I had scarcely recognized suddenly loomed up before me as a burning, shining planet. In the spirit, all things became real. I cannot veil from you the fact that it must be a disappointment to him who has no conception of the immortal state. The materialistic mind of earth will find things so much more real in the spiritual state that his shadows will vanish, and then, for the time, he is lost. The eternity domain becomes visible. I was grateful for that birth which, out of materialism, gave me consciousness of spiritual life. Coming toward me, space filled with all for which I had hoped and of which I had prophesied. And in the very antechamber which I entered immediately after death, I could see so much of eternity that it would take mortal breath away, as it almost did the breath of the spirit. There was no low, dim twilight. There was no simple fading of existence. There was no sense of inanition. There was no uncertainty. There was no bewilderment, no pausing, as if in sleep upon the threshold of that immortal state, while tender hands would prepare, as they sometimes do, the immortal spirit. Suddenly, and with full power, I sprang upright and was immediately aware of being a form whose intensity pervaded and thrilled me until I seemed to be a part of all the universe around me. My new form was so like the form lying at my feet that I was startled at the resemblance, save that one was shadowy, pale, and wan with disease and suffering, and the other was crowned with the vigor of youth and manhood. The new form was so like my old self that I was fain to put away one form. It was distressing to see my old resemblance so near, like one that has sometimes seen himself in a mirror and wondered who it could be. So I gazed upon that new form, and I considered the reality and wondered for an instant whether it would endure. But as that old form upon which I gazed was already the shadow, as no part of my individuality remained, as there was not even breath, nor warmth, nor coloring, as it was really only the shadow, I was glad when it was laid out of earthly and human sight, since it then could no longer mock the eyes of the loved ones. All the while, although I was there with the great longing of my heart, with the enfolding arms and the love that spoke audibly to the spiritual ear, yet they did not hear. To talk forever of one's loved ones and not be heard would be insufferable. To think forever in spirit toward those who are left behind and find no response would drive me mad. Testimony of a dead person. I am here to testify to death, as once I testified to humanity. As feebly and faintly as one human being might who hoped for the best and always strove to find the truth, so now with a greater strength, born not alone of thought, but of being, I am here to testify of death. It is the living splendor of the universe. I am transfigured. the being that was seen and known on earth. I am, and I am more than this. I am all that I hope to be. I am all that I aspired to be. I was imperfect, as human beings usually are here below as they struggle for higher possibilities. But I am more than I dared to dream. I am better than I dared to hope. I am the humblest in the kingdom of the Spirit, yet I am greater than the greatest on earth aspires to be. Even the slave, I do not mean him who wears the shackles in form, but the slave in soul who comes cringing into the world of spirit. He who creeps and crawls with terror toward the tomb, even he is greater in spirit than he seems to be, greater than you would dare to dream that he might be. The best of it is that death makes all this possible to be known, that it gives you the key to the temple of your own life. There is but one other way by which you can know it, and only dimly that way. I mean by inspiration. I mean by spiritual perception. Do not think that death will lead you to escape any responsibilities. It brings you all your treasures. It yields to you all your possessions. It restores to you all your faded hopes. It gives back every blessed and good promise, but it will not relieve you from responsibilities. These are yours. You inherit them. They belong to you as a part of the infinite plan. And sooner or later, in one world or another, in one state of being or another, you must meet and vanquish them one by one. Your poverty of spirit is revealed by death, as are your riches. You must bear the test which divine scrutiny brings. To the world of the new age, there shall be a voice, not one, but many, not feeble and faint, as of one man crying in the wilderness, but the voice of multitudes, millions upon millions of souls, speaking audibly by the gateway of life and speaking to the hearts of humanity. You will hear them. They cry, Father, Mother, husband, wife, and child, and you will pause in your daily work and wonder at how that voice resembles one long silent in death. I tell you, they will crowd upon you until you must hear. They will look into your eyes from the spiritual world until you see that they live, and you will recognize them. They will have you know that life, not death, is the destiny of man, and that the sweetest thing you have named death is no longer noxious, dark, and terrible, but is the beauty of all existence, the crown of all being, the freedom of all slavery, the triumph of all vanquishment. It is the gateway beyond the walls of human limitations in which you live, and leads to the celestial and eternal city where all are free in their light and wisdom and love. O voiceless yet audible sounds, these are the voices of your loved ones proclaiming that death and life are one. So ends the description of transition as experienced by the great writer Epes Sargent. The journey into light. The great journey poses many questions. If you were approached today by one whose authority commanded your obedience and told you you must depart for a strange land, many questions would besiege you. How far is it from here? In what direction? Where is it located? What are the people like? What kind of homes do they live in? What kind of clothes do they wear? What language do they speak? What is their mode of travel? What is of their culture? What of their food, pleasures, pastimes? What of their climate? What religion is universally accepted? What philosophy is popularly expounded? Will I be happy there? Can I communicate with those I am leaving here? Can I come back? You would busy yourself poring over travel brochures describing the country. You would seek out books about the people and their customs. You would ask anybody who had been there to describe the country. You might even contact people living there and obtain more direct information. Today, with religious and dogmatic barriers fading away and metaphysical precepts coming rapidly to the fore, these questions burn in the mind of every true seeker of light. We search for answers concerning our future life and the land into which we will all be traveling sometime. That there is an afterlife and that those who now abide in it can communicate with us has long been established. Hordes of people, failing to find answers to their many questions about the afterlife and orthodoxy, are turning to metaphysics and mysticism for their answers. Some among these, many become Astarians. Some Astarians, reading the words of others concerning that waiting country, find that this is not enough. These seekers would possess direct access to the other side. They are interested in studying the great science personally. They are interested in entering the rituals of self-discipline, which would attune them to the higher frequency of that unseen universe. For these, we have provided Lama Yoga. The majority are content to accomplish the spiritual study which describes that verdant land. For these, we give the present teachings. The Astarian yogi and the spiritual student alike will unite to take this exciting journey into light. It has indeed required many lessons to guide you, the pilgrim, through the experience of death. Now, together we shall discover what awaits you on the other side. Just as death itself is an individual journey, no two souls experiencing the same events, so is the awakening. The Apostle Paul said, "One star differs from another in glory, so also is the resurrection of the dead." 1 Corinthians. He points to the different experiences of death. What may be true of one passing through the bardo will not be true for someone else. Each is raised according to the state of spiritual progression. No two spiritual births are alike. Birth into the spiritual world, the counterpart of birth into the natural world, operates under methods and laws. Just as events in natural birth differ, so do they in spiritual births. Communications are rife with different descriptions of spiritual life, the manner in which one died, and the experiences one faced when first becoming aware. Let us begin with your awakening in your new home on the astral. The bardo now behind you, you have discovered how truly alive you are. You have greeted individual loved ones who awaited your arrival. You have met and been made welcome by Astara's teachers, or at least one of them. Let us say that Zoser has chosen to become your guide during the first few days and weeks of your new life, escorting you throughout the vast new world, explaining its wonders, its laws, its way of life. May we walk beside you. Attending one's funeral. To repeat, usually the first thought of the newly arrived Astarian is to see how those left on earth are faring, and you are no exception. Zoser escorts you through the ethers to the vicinity of your earth home. You spend the first few days of your new life very close to dear ones of earth, sending them thoughts of light, love, strength. Some are aware of your nearness and some are not. As is frequently the case, especially with the Astarians, you attend your own funeral or memorial service and experience sadness of temporarily parting from loved ones. Although you are well aware that there is no real parting, nevertheless, you share the sorrow of those who grieve your passing. Zoser explains that a pilgrim occasionally experiences the strange sensation of poignant regret at parting from his or her discarded form. You may feel automatically drawn to it, reacting to the habit of attraction, which has held sway for perhaps many earth years. It is because of this possible morbid attachment that cremation offers such a wise solution. It may be good to look upon the past, but not upon such a representative of the past. It is far better to know the body no longer exists. Such magnetic attraction operates mostly upon the minds of those who consider their bodies as themselves. They have formed the habit of thinking of themselves as the body and have given it an exaggerated importance. Much will depend upon circumstances. If there was illness and pain connected with the last days, indescribable relief and happiness is experienced. But if one is young and in full vigor of life, one experiences a compassionate sentiment for the body and a feeling of appreciation for the service it has given. The sense of loss is usually overcome quickly, however, as one becomes accustomed to new liberation and accelerated mental capacities. Convincing the newly dead. Zoser relates that occasionally a pilgrim, upon first arriving on the astral and finding themselves in a body so like the physical form, refuses to believe they have died. Various methods are employed to persuade them. First, the pilgrim is asked what friend or relative they have who is dead. When one is named, the newly deceased is taken to meet this one face to face. Should this fail to convince, the pilgrim is then taken back to earth among family and maid to see how different they are now, how unseen, how unnoticed they are. Even this sometimes fails. The still doubtful pilgrim is then asked to remember what they were doing before passing, and then led step by step up to the time when they fell asleep. Finally, the pilgrim is persuaded to connect that moment with the awakening on the astral. Eventually comes an understanding of what has occurred. How much better would it be if everyone fully realized the truth of transition before death? So many are taught to believe they will sleep until some far-off judgment day. Little wonder they are astonished to discover they have only entered a larger room in the Mother-Father's many mansions. The resurrection. Then you will ask, Zoser, explain the laws of the resurrection. How are the dead raised? And Zoser will patiently explain that death does not abrogate the law of sequence, but still following natural evolution, the soul simply discovers a liberation from certain ponderous limitations and takes wing, losing nothing of value. It assimilates additional powers which supplement rather than displace those already possessed. Thus, the soul becomes greater than before, since it has risen a higher step in its evolutionary ascent. Death works no unnatural miracle. The what will be follows the natural sequence of what has been. Death only releases the soul from the garment of flesh and races it across the immortal border. There it attracts and assumes clothing commensurate with the color verdict of the law of God, denoting a righteous judgment upon its level of spiritual awakening. Such a resurrection is a purely natural and always active phenomenon, not a miracle to be awaited in some distant millennium. Zoser may quote scripture, perhaps the Bible, to help you understand how zealously Christ tried to make his own followers understand the law of resurrection. Verily, I say unto you, he that hears my word and believes on him that sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. John chapter 5, verse 24. Christ thus asserted the truth of immediate resurrection and adds, Verily, I say unto you, if a man keeps my sayings, he shall never see death. Jesus confirmed this truth again to Martha. Jesus saith unto her, Thy brother shall rise again. Martha said, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live, and whosoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Believest thou this? What else can one add to the Christ's teaching? He clearly promised immediate resurrection and asserted the truth of life after death to all people, not just Christians. Other avatars of many faiths have proclaimed the same thing. And as mystical seekers, we understand the meaning behind these words when Christ said, I am the resurrection. We believe him to be saying, that person who is interested in the spiritual life, who is awake to spirit, who endeavors to attain spiritual growth, as I, their brother, have done, even through his action, that person shall have everlasting life, and every soul, sooner or later, in the wheel of life and death and reincarnation, turns their attention to the higher realms, to the life of the spirit, the planes over there. Once the funeral or memorial service is concluded, Zoser will escort you back to your new home in Australia. Eager though he is to lead you along the vernal margins of musical waters and incomparable landscapes, first he must enlighten you concerning the various planes in the new world, familiarizing you with their names and the inhabitants. Where are the many mansions? Here on earth, there is America, North and South, and its inhabitants, Americans, Europe and Europeans, Asia and Asians, Africa and Africans, etc. He will display a chart and ask you to become familiar with it. Familiarity with terminology and definition of these heavenly mansions and their inhabitants avoids much confusion. The chart will resemble this one. 1. Earth, the world of matter where the soul is incarnated as a personality. 2. Human being, one who dwells on earth in a physical form. 3. Australia, the unseen country, usually known as the astral, immediately surrounding the earth, and which is divided into 3 different regions. A, threshold, the doorway to the entire other world. B, borderland, the lowlands of Australia, where most human beings first ascend following death, the world of illusion. C, highland, the upper regions of Australia, where most people ascend after a short stay in borderland and dwell for long periods. 4, Australians, those who, having discarded the physical form, now dwell in one of the divisions of Australia. Lowlanders, those who inhabit borderland. Highlanders, those who dwell in the upper planes of the astral. Summerland, the planes of heaven, the lower mental plane, where Australians ascend after overcoming their desire natures, which have held them to the astral planes of Australia, the world of mind and color. Paradise, the higher mental world, the causal plane, the home of the soul. Here the soul is stripped of all outer garments and lives to the highest degree of its individual spiritual perception. The plane where the lower personality involves with the cosmic personality, the soul world. Paradisians, those who have evolved out of the astral and lower mental planes and ascend to the causal plane of paradise. Etheria, the whole vast immensity of the 3 planes of evolution involved with Earth and its human life wave. Thus, it would be the entire other world, containing Australia and Summerland and Paradise, the astral, lower mental, and causal planes immediately surrounding Earth. Beyondness, the spiritual planes beyond the causal, out yonder, the state of timelessness, the nirvanic realms of ascending master souls, that which stretches beyond the 3 planes of evolution involving the human life wave on Earth. Awareness of the spiritual body leads to discovery of the spiritual consciousness, the transformation. As a new arrival, you walk with feet and legs, just as you did on Earth. You see with eyes very much like your physical eyes. You hear with ears very naturally. You touch and smell and taste things just as you did here on Earth. However, you gradually become aware that though the senses are in every respect similar to those of your physical form, they are becoming increasingly more susceptible, more keen, and more sensitive. Then you take note that your form is becoming more vigorous, more youthful. The aches and pains have departed. If you attained old age, senility, and feebleness on earth, it may require a few days before your sensibilities begin to discern these subtle changes, but infirmities gradually depart. The limbs become straighter and firmer. The gnarled hands gradually assume strength and beauty, depending upon the state of mind. The young soul, or the physically centered soul, because of unbelief, changes little until he or she changes in attitude. The average person changes gradually because it requires time for the consciousness to assimilate the idea that such a change can occur. But we speak now of the Astarian initiate. Since thought plays such a power in the other world, elderly people cannot help growing young again, becoming accustomed to such unbounded energy. One cannot help feeling young in mind and action, thus transferring the same youth to the form. The body takes on the quality of the mind. It simply follows the law of rhythm. In an amazingly brief time, you, the initiate, begin to react to sharpened senses, to feel the need to to gratify a growing spiritual hunger, to know more of this new land, the life on the other side. This will continue to lesson 20. My soul shall not be fettered. The ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, with its instructions for those who seek spiritual enlightenment as an aid to the great journey into the afterlife, states, I have gained the power to do whatever my Ka pleaseth. The Ka is the spiritual double. My soul shall not be fettered to my body at the gates of the underworld, but I shall enter in peace, and I shall come forth in peace. Those are good teachings. Very, very informative. So before we end, as I like to do, if you guys are okay with that, is to send out the blessings of the month to all those on the call, if that's okay. So just be receptive. To all those that we have invoked to, may all on this call, may they freely receive from the source of all life generous quantities of the qualities which will contribute to their progress. May both material and spiritual improvement attend their efforts in the world of the seen and the unseen. Tatatso. And the affirming meditation. As we attune our inner nature to the deeper dimensions of the infinite, may we find inner serenity to balance the outer world of confusion. May we find understanding to cope with the problems of everyday life. May we find that fortitude which enables us to sustain ourselves as a focal point of the infinite in the center of the finite. May this manifest and materialize on all levels, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, etherically, physically. Tatatso, tatatso, tatatso. Namaste, precious, precious souls. Thank you so, so much for joining Book of Life. We will see you tomorrow for the blessing of the prayer petitions. And we'll keep getting this. I only have 2 more lessons before we start the 4th degree. It's exciting. This has been such a great journey with you all. I'm so grateful that you all have been through this and the last year and a half, couple years, and listening to all these and going through this has been fantastic. So I thank you so much. Wish you all God's continued blessings on every level, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take good care. Namaste, precious souls.